This is IBM Museum, and I have a microchannel testing rig now. You remember our previous video, I had the Mul 30 chassis. I was going through and testing those 8-bit token ring adapters for what microcode may have been in the EPROMs. And so I've gone through, and I think on a previous video, I also showed where I did the microcode of the 16/4 megabit adapters on this system. And now I've gone through and going to test the 4 megabit token ring adapters. Remember, that's with the green dot, no 16/4 mark on that. And I even went through and I ordered, I found one eBay that I didn't think I had the board because I saw the picture on the page. Let me bring up what that is. And it looked a little bit, the picture didn't look like something that I had taken. And so I went through and got another one of them. I'll go through and unbox it, although I think I have that adapter. But I do have, this is the page I'll link in the video description. And I've got that long 4 megabit adapter that I'll show. And then here are the so-called short versions, of course, since they're a reduced size. And I'll bring those up, and it goes through and lists what the ROM chips, the placement for that, of what the FRUs are for those EPROMs, and that relates to what microcode versions on them. There's a couple different versions, so I'll go through and work with that. I'm going to get myself back. Well, I can probably leave this up just so I know that I have the full field of view, leave my webcam picture down. So this is these two over here. I've got one that I'm sending for a little bit of a disassembly, as it were. But this is the 4 megabit adapter in microchannel form. And I've probably shown this previously. It looks a lot like the 8-bit adapter in the chips that are on there. And this is the Azores chipset that's on here. This is the first token ring design that IBM went through. And we've seen these types of printed circuit boards before with all the grid laid out, and how IBM went through and worked with those, and then later on reduced them to smaller PCBs and those and went through and put a lot of the effectively the chips on, in one silver cap chip that does all the functionality. And of course, the EPROMs are separate. And I have to go through at some point. I'll have to see which side is up here. Yeah. Okay. So there's the EPROMs. And these are actually soldered into the board. So they're not socketed. And it's interesting because the equivalent adapter in 8-bit has these chips, these EPROMs socketed, and it also is adaptable to become the so-called trace and performance adapter as well, just by switching the EPROMs on those on an 8-bit adapter too, is how IBM identified them. And by the way, if you have any of these adapters, don't go through and try and straighten out any of these capacitors or any of these things. It almost looks like a little bit of Tetris in some places, but don't try and adjust these components we're still pondering a little bit of the jumpers that are on this board and what they may do. On the 8-bit adapter, it just has, I think, 3 of those jumpers, and it's pretty well marked out. I think 2 of them do the RAM. If you have more RAM, they go through and you have jumpers on there that recognizes that. But yeah, I'll go through and I'll extract these EEPROMs. I'll go through and put sockets on these boards and be able to pull these EEPROMs out to be able to read them eventually. But the interesting thing I found today was going through and running the diagnostic program. And that's the same program that I boot from that diskette, the same as I did in the Mall 30 chassis. And it was not able to work with these. It couldn't, it went through and had an issue with the detection. And it's interesting that it's actually inverted to where on the 8-bit adapter, this long version worked with the Azores chipset, and then the short versions of the adapters didn't work on that Mall 30 setup for going through and detecting having the adapter detected properly and checking what microcode version it was. So I just had, where the system failed with me trying to go through and read the microcode earlier. I went through and I've read, these are the so-called short versions, of course. And this one, let me see. These all have, okay, this one has the Spyglass chip. That 63F7704 is the Spyglass. And this is probably for this 51F1439. I think that's just probably another Spyglass version that's manufactured in another location. And we'll get to see what's under the hood of these, of particular this chip. We've seen the Spyglass chip die, and die meaning the what's inside the chip, the code mask. So I've gone through and I've tested this one. I've gone through and also I'll just briefly flip over to that the video capture, because I've gone through and for that middle line, of course, is why I'm interested in is that adapter code level. And so that's what's reported from this particular microcode version. And I have the table populated with that data and getting to the point where it's more filled in. Now let's go through, and I've kind of confirmed by looking at the eBay auction of what this adapter is. They actually have the tear. It looks like the tear strip is, well, no, that's just part of a paper, I guess, over the top. I'll go through and cut or figure out how this. It's a nice box. I want to go through and figure out the best way to open it. So have a seam there. Okay, well, maybe I just need to open it then. I thought it might have a pull tab or something there. And good packaging. I mean, it's got bubble wrap and padding. And I mean, it could be either side of the adapter in a way, but it's at least the adapter's in a shrink wrap, shrink wrap, an anti-static bag, and whatever that's reused from. But even a resealable closure, like a lot of them have. Okay, and I was kind of interested in, and the description. It's funny because it was listed as dusty, but works, and I don't know how they test it. But of course, the 4 megabit adapter, and that has the same FRUs on those EPROMs. So that's the one I have here, and then the one I have in the machine, and that it's got some other stamp on it, but it's got one of those 5.1. And Dave from EEV blog just talked about microscopes and reading chip identifications. And I just wonder if he's ever tried some of these so-called silver cap chips, reading the the part number on those. But that's indeed what I already have in these other adapters. So I'll just have to go through and do pictures of these, because that picture was it was at a tilt, and not that I necessarily go through and do all my pictures are perfect or anything like that. But I did the picture for that. In fact, I'll have to look at a way. Yeah, if I go through and click on it, I get to figure out if I can do a way to get. It'd be nice if I had a keyboard button, I guess, to go back. Let me see if I can go through and work with things here. Well, and the way I did it is I just brought up another page basically for the browser capture of OBS. But here's my table, and I've got a little bit more populated now. And I had a typo the other day. I had a had the EPROMs identified the same way, and I went through and corrected that. Had a little tilde symbol in there, so that's a little bit more complete now. And the blanks, mainly on the microcode side, are those 8-bit, 4 megabit token ring adapters. So the adapters that are an 8-bit format for the PC and MAL30 style, and only able to do the 4 megabit per second token ring rate. Okay, and now we've got back our page, and get to where I can interact with it again. And what I mean is that the picture's here, and it there's by these camera icons that are over the diagrams of the adapters. I was just noticing one of the adapters was the second one there, the second set of pictures was a little bit off kilter, so I'll go through and photograph those up again. And at least I know the microcode level. I think it has both versions identified there at the bottom. So I already have those already archived. I've already archived them as well. And so it'll just be going through and adding that adapter I ordered to these that I already had. So, and it was, I think, affordable enough. But let's go through and hide that browser capture, get back to the system. So just me going a little bit further, getting a few more adapter, or trying to get a few more adapter microcode levels. and the 4 megabit adapters in this case for microchannel. And didn't work for the long adapter, but I got that for the short adapters. Now I'll have to figure out why that diagnostic program doesn't go through and doesn't want to work with some of the adapters. It's really strange. It's inverted between the 8-bit and the microchannel side too. So just kind of odd in a way. It may be the chips that are on there or something else. And I'm looking for a way to actually decode the EEPROM directly. I mean, I've got the EEPROM images of going through and finding where that sequence is, and it's encoding. I don't know what exactly it's doing. It's not in ASCII form. It doesn't seem to be in epithetic, the format that IBM used in a lot of those instances when it did that the microcode image in that EEPROM. So I don't know. It's still got to be decoded a little bit more. But if you thought the video was informative, go ahead and click on that like button, please. And by all means, subscribe to my channel if you've not done so already. And recommend it to your friends so they can subscribe too. But that's all I have for now. This is IBM Museum. Thank you.